Hello and welcome to episode 8 of the Paper Crane Yarns Knitting Podcast. My name is Ashley. I am the dyer behind Paper Crane Yarns, which can be found on Etsy and Instagram. I'm coming to you from my lovely yarn wall in my dye studio slash soon-to-be local yarn store here in Alabama. Today is September 4th. It's 5 a.m. Saturday morning. It's been exactly 2 weeks since I recorded. There's a lot going on over here now in my personal life, which is pretty interesting how quickly things can change. Lots of good things, very exciting things that I will be sharing pretty soon. I am going to Rhinebeck. This is not a new announcement, but as a reminder, I'm going to Rhinebeck in October, so that's the most exciting thing that I've got going on. That's a couple weeks away, which is crazy. I guess it's about a month, maybe 5 weeks. Something like that, but I'm so excited. Yeah, can't wait to take that road trip and meet a bunch of friends at Rhinebeck and India Untangled. I've actually never been to the Northeast. I grew up in a lot of different places. I grew up in Hawaii. I grew up, spent a little time in California. I have been in the South for a long time now, but I have never been Northeast, which I'm really excited about, especially during that time of the year, the leaves changing, all those cliche things. Cannot wait. After a couple of difficult years, I'm sure that we can all agree, it will be nice to have something to look forward to that's just yarn and just Rhinebeck things and all the hand knits, and yeah, can't wait to just see all of the wild knitters in person. Okay, so yeah, I'm here today to talk about my knitting, and that's really the only craft I have to talk about this time around. So yeah, my last episode 7, I mentioned that my future knitting would probably be a Soldotna by Caitlin Hunter, and well, you can see I have knit my Soldotna. So we'll talk about that first, I guess, because that's kind of the elephant in the room. Yeah, so this is a pattern that I'm sure you're likely familiar with. It's kind of funny, my last episode when I wore my Alho by, I think her name is Anna Johanna, after I listened to a Boyland podcast. I had been calling her Anna Johanna, but Johanna makes more sense, so I'll go with that from now on. I was wearing that sweater and I actually got comments like, oh, it's great to see something different, you know, in the community, and then I decided to make a Soldotna, which is like a rite of passage, and everybody has made one. So I'm sorry that this is not a unique sort of knitting accomplishment, but the colors are interesting, and hopefully, you know, it's Colorworks, so everybody's is a little different. So my Soldotna is knit out of yarn that I dyed. This is a DK weight yarn. This is, of course, as I mentioned last time, this is the first yarn that I ever dyed for these colorways. So this was like practice dyeing, practice skeins. It was a gift from my husband when I first wanted to get into dyeing. So this is really special yarn to me. And that's why the color combo is a little bit, well, I mean, I like it, but it is kind of, it's a little bold. I'm calling this my unicorn, or like my 80s unicorn sweater. I don't know. I do really like it. But yeah, the color, it's not like I sat down and picked out these colors. They were sort of picked for me because I'd already dyed this as a set, essentially. I had, is that 4 colorways, I think? Yeah, my dark pink, my teal, my light pink, and my sort of black, gray, purple. So yeah, it was 4 different colorways that I selected to go together out of, I think 6 or so that I had dyed. And it only took 1 skein of each. I think this is the 3rd size in the pattern, if I remember correctly. And yeah, it took me basically 2 full skeins, and then I haven't weighed them, but I think less than half maybe of my other 2 skeins. But here are my very messy yarn balls. So to talk a little bit about the evolution of this project, I recorded my episode 2 weeks ago on a Friday evening. Sunday morning, I woke up with a whim to just cast it on and make it happen. I had just finished my Alho sweater and I had no sweater on the needles. I am a sweater knitter, so that was not a good feeling. My Swift and my ball winder were both here at my studio, so at home, and I didn't really feel like driving all the way here, so I just wrapped it all by, I wound it all by hand, which was not a fun task. I always have to get my husband's help. He's so patient, but his fingers were turning blue. That was kind of scary. So yeah, I've got some really messy yarn balls going on here. This is the product of impatience, but so worth it though, because it took me exactly 7 days to knit this sweater with only one mistake. Yeah, really, really happy with this project. So if you did watch my last episode, I thought it was kind of funny. I had mentioned that I wanted to knit this. There you go, it's done. I also said though in that same episode that I don't use charts, and what do you know, this pattern is a chart. So I was eating my words not even 48 hours later. I will say, this was my first time working from a chart, and it was so easy. I don't know why I was so afraid of it before. It was a really simple process. It made a lot of sense. I'm sure that there are charts out there that are difficult to read, but as far as just knitting this color work, it was really, really easy. The only thing that I had confusion about was if you read it from left to right or right to left, which I'm sure is more intuitive to some, but I had to figure that out. Once I got it down, which again took no time at all, this was the easiest sweater to knit. I also did not knit a gauge swatch, which is sort of my MO. I've only ever done one gauge swatch, sort of, which we'll talk about today, but it worked out really well, so it's okay. I'm not saying that it's going to always be this way, and I'm sure I'll be regretting it at some point that I never knit a gauge swatch, but in this case it was okay. So I used all the recommended needle sizes for the ribbing and for the color work, and everything worked out really great. There's only one spot, which is up here, where I felt like the color work was a little bit too tight, and it's interesting, it's not tight against me, but the neckline, because there's short row shaping in the neck is a little bit wonky because it doesn't quite, it's not as loose as it should be right here. So my secret is I have to actually fold the neckline in the back to get it to really rest correctly on my neck. So it is almost like having a turtleneck in the back, but it's pretty easy to fix. And I mean, I did block the sweater, so I don't know if I can really block this out further or if it's even worth it, since it's a pretty easy fix. And I always wear my hair down, so I think it hides it pretty well anyway. So all in all, really fun project to make. Yeah, you'll see I did make one mistake with the chart here when I got to the body section of the color work. I thought that it was telling you, so there's like a separate color work chart for the yoke and then for the body. And when I got to the body, I thought it said to knit one entire iteration of the body chart and then to repeat what was in the box. I didn't realize you repeated what was in the box, the amount of times that you were supposed to repeat, and then on your last one, do the full chart. So this stripe should have been down here at the ribbing, like on top. So I think I mean, if you know what a Soldotna looks like and it just comes to your mind, or if you've knit one, you might notice the mistake, but I think otherwise it's perfectly fine. I'm not worried about it. Definitely wasn't worth going back and redoing it. I did have to play some yarn chicken with this sweater because, as I mentioned, I only had one of each of the colorways when skein. It hardly required any of this light pink color, and I don't have names for these since these were all practice. I mean, light pink, teal, and this is obviously in here and in here. So this was one of my contrast colors that it's not featured as much in the pattern. And then of course I've got my teal for my pop of color to help kind of break up some of those really similar colorways. And then for the main yoke color, dropped it. So for the main yoke color, I had this hot pink shade, and when I wound this on my finger, I created multiple small balls because I just was messing up. So by the time I was knitting the ribbing at the bottom, when I was finishing up the sweater, I didn't have much left of that ball, so I actually had to knit the ribbing a little bit shorter than is called for, but it still worked out pretty well. So yeah, this is all I have of the hot pink shade. I do have, I mean, you saw the other ball of the teal. I think I made 2 balls to start out with, so a decent amount of that teal left. I'll probably knit some DK shorty socks with those 2 colors I have a lot of. And then this was all that I had left of the darker shade. So I was cutting it pretty close there. I'm glad that it worked out. I'm a little flustered this morning, I guess because it is 5 a.m. This is when I always start my day, but this is the earliest I've ever recorded, so you guys are the first people I'm speaking to this morning. You know, when you go to first talk for the day and it's all just a jumbled mess, well, that's what y'all are getting here today. So I'll stand up and show you the sweater a little bit. So this is a very cropped sweater, and of course it's short sleeves, which I've never knit anything like this before. I was a little bit afraid that I wouldn't wear it because I am a long sleeve person, and I also am not very much a cropped person unless it's over a tank top, which is what I'm doing, or a dress, which I have on order, thrifted, like a secondhand dress, should be here soon, and I think that'll look really pretty. So there will certainly be applications for this, but it's not the typical thing for me to knit. So yeah. So yeah, I do feel like I should be hitting a ski lodge in the 1980s, and like I need a big loud windbreaker jacket to go along with this sweater. Here, I'm wearing it with, there we go. So it's all just very fun. Yeah, big fan. All right, moving on to works in progress. So I have 2 whips. I still don't have a sweater on the needles, which is not easy for me because I feel like I'm making no progress when I'm not knitting a sweater. I don't know if anybody else feels that way. I mean, like I said, I'm a sweater knitter. I know everybody tends to have a preference for what they knit. Like if you're a shawl knitter, an accessory knitter, a sock knitter, I definitely prefer sweaters, but you know what, it's okay. I'm going to Rhinebeck soon. I will have my yarn soon to do so, to cast on the sweater. And then I have a pile of yarn here that I've shown before, but I need your help in figuring out a pattern to knit with it because I am at a loss. So I'll get to that at the end. I'm gonna try to make today's episode a little bit shorter. So my next work in progress is the same one that I showed last episode, which is my spring sampler shawl by Nordic Yarn Imports. It is a very, very easy shawl. This is like a, you know, there's vanilla sock patterns. I would say that this is like a vanilla shawl pattern. I think you could take this pattern and really apply like any kind of yarn to it, any weight, any combination of colors. You could do a single color. It's so easy. I will be using this again, and maybe to play around with some like lace and stuff that I want to incorporate into it myself. But here is where I'm at. Let's see. I think the last time I showed this, I had only maybe done 3 stripes, and there's 5 colors, so I just started last night on the first repeat of the first color here. This is, oh no, all right, let me get this back on the needles. This is very slippery yarn is what it is. It is the, I think, Sadnes Garn Tynn Line or Tynn Line, which is a linen and cotton, I think, yarn, and viscose, I believe. Yeah, Sadnes Garn Tynn Line, 53% cotton, 33% viscose, 14% linen. So it is very, very slippery. It has been a joy to work with though. So without further ado, I'll actually show it to you. This is where you cast on. I started with this black shade, moving on to this lavender sort of shade, to a dark navy, to this lighter blue, and then a blush pink, which has so far actually been my favorite color. and now I'm back to black. And it just increases by 1 stitch every other row. So this is a free pattern. You can find it on Ravelry and potentially on their website, I'm sure. I will link it below, but since it's a free pattern, I don't mind kind of talking about it because, you know, you could easily go and find this information yourself. Each section, except for the first and last, is 25 garter ridges, so it's 50 rows. And of course, you're knitting front and back, so you have a right side and a wrong side. This is the wrong side. You can see where the color change is happening. This is on I think a 3.5 millimeter needle, so a US size 4. This is my Haya needles, my interchangeable set on a pretty long cable. I think the longest one that it comes with. And yeah, so I'm really loving this. It doesn't quite go with what I'm wearing, so it might look a little silly, but it's getting really big now. I'm almost at the middle. Once you have done 8 stripes, you start to decrease. It's something like when you get to the middle of the 8th stripe, you begin your decreasing. So it is getting really large. The gauge is a little bit airy, so it is, with it being cotton and linen, it's pretty comfortable and lightweight. I think this will be a kind of year-round sort of piece, like a wardrobe staple. I'm having a difficult time this morning. But I am loving knitting this. I will say the bigger it's gotten, the harder it is to knit. It is sort of slippery at this point, and it can be difficult with the needle size for this sort of yarn to really do this comfortably all the time. It's almost like there was an in-between period. So when it was really small, it was easy to knit, and now that it's really big, it's kind of easy to knit, but when it was sort of like in between, it got more difficult, I think. I'm not sure why, but so yeah. 25 garter ridges. You do 50 on the first one to accommodate for the fact that it's a really narrow section. And I think once this is done, it is going to be really beautiful. So that is my spring sampler shawl. You can see why you could knit it with really anything. The pattern is really just a formula, like a very, very simple formula. And yep, super happy with that. I'm using, like I said, 5 colorways. Last time I did not share the colorway numbers, and this time I'm not really going to either because they, you know, you probably will not really remember the numbers, and it didn't seem like there's a whole lot of colorways for this anyway, so it should be easy to just put together a set if you wanted to make your own kind of kit. 1, 2, 3, 4. So these are my colorways, not necessarily in order. So I do think that these look pretty good together. There's a lot of similarities, so it's not like the most striking kind of project, but I think once it's all done, it'll look pretty good together. And that's it. It's really nice and cozy in the hand, I will say that. Like the garter is very squishy and yeah, just so cute, very lightweight. I'm really excited to have this done. All right, so my final work in progress is also something I cast on these past 2 weeks. My husband has been asking for a really long stocking cap for a while now, which is like a beanie that is also a scarf. So he likes to be a little silly. He really wanted and he used to have a really long hat. So I'm finally making it for him. It's not like he goes unloved with knits. He does have socks, he has a sweater, and you know, but if he wants this so bad, I'm gonna do it so that he'll let me just knit things for myself for a while. So I'm knitting a stocking cap. It was a paid for pattern, and now I can't think of what it was called, but I will link it below. I think the pattern came out in like 2007. It doesn't have a whole lot of projects, so I don't think there's like a ton of people out there rushing to knit a very long stocking cap. But I will say, if this was in different colors and a smaller size, I would probably steal this from him sometimes because I've tried it on and it's kind of cute in an interesting way. But this project is also living in my only acquisition, and I mentioned this last time, but I actually have it now. And this is my amazing labyrinth bag. So The Labyrinth is one of my favorite movies. I was mentioning last time that the 80s time period is like the best for music and movies and just everything, fashion. So I, of course, had to buy this. And this is a Lila Styles bag. I will say it took a long time to get here, and but you know, it was worth it. It's a really well-made bag. I mean, this is my first and only real project bag that I've ever purchased to use as a dedicated project bag, so I am happy with it. I was getting a little concerned with how long it took to get here, but it's okay. It was worth it. I do recommend checking out her bags. The light will probably blow it out a little bit, but this is the amazing fabric. So the yarn I'm using for this project is KnitPicks Wool of the Andes worsted weight, and this is the Superwash one. I've used the Wool of the Andes non-Superwash to make myself The Weekender by Andrea Mowry, but my husband, he has incredibly sensitive skin when it comes to wool, so that was not gonna happen. If I was gonna put all of this time and effort and money into knitting him something, I want it to be something he would wear. So I got the Superwash, and I will say that this has been really nice. I've never used this before, not from KnitPicks. And now I kind of want to knit a sweater out of this. So my two colors are, let's see, my two colors are red and marble heather. So they're very bright. This is a very, very bright red and like a pretty standard heather gray. So there you go. These are 100% superwash wool. They are 110 yards to 50 grams. Yeah, this is a hat. This is a hat. It's huge. And it's nowhere near done. I think that the pattern and okay, so the pattern said for this size, which is the large, for a 22-inch circumference head, is going to be 67 inches long. And I did the math because I thought that cannot be right. I mean, my husband is over 6 feet tall. That's pretty long. And I did the math, and it's definitely going to be about 67 inches long. It does have a tassel at the end, so that probably, well, no, I don't think that accounts for it, because when I did the math, just the repeats are 67 inches. So then it should be even longer when I do the tassel, if I do one, which I think I'll have to just to weight it down. Oh my goodness. So yeah, this is just a striped hat. It's a paid for pattern, so I won't talk about it. I won't talk about it too much in detail, but I will say, like, this yarn has been lovely to work with. The stitch definition is really pretty, and it's a very, very simple formula, but I went ahead. I'm sure I could have knit this without a pattern, but I wanted to do it right, so I got one. And I will say, I do wish I was knitting the medium, because my husband likes things to be really tight, like hats to be really tight on his head. So I'm gonna have to probably try to shrink this when I'm done. I've never done that before. I've been reading about different ways to do that. If y'all have some tips, I would really appreciate it. I'm gonna try my best not to shrink the length of it, but just the size in the oh my goodness, in the brim. I do know that I could go through and weave in some elastic, but the ribbing is really short. So as far as I know, what most people normally do if they have to put in elastic is to put it somewhere within the ribbing and then fold it over. But because this is so short, I can't really do that without having the garter edge sticking out, and it's not gonna look right. So I think shrinking it just a tad is the only option. It's not huge on him, so I really only need to do it a little bit, but I think it would be better for his sake and him wearing it if it was a little smaller. I'm using a Grizzly Knits stitch marker. One of, it was the cottontail set that I got. So these are just some stones on a ring, and I love using this. I actually thought that I lost it when I was doing some hospital knitting the other day, and thankfully it was just inside of the yarn ball. I mean, I looked forever. Everybody in the waiting room probably thought, A, I was nuts because I was already knitting, and B, I was suddenly looking everywhere for like the tiniest object possible, and to no avail, until I got home and took it out, and it just fell out, of course, as things do. So I'm gonna try this on so you can kind of get a feel for it. It's obviously not blocked, so it's still a little bit, it's like a little bit, you know, it's not falling quite the way that it normally would. Oh goodness. And it's definitely not my size, so it is too big for me here, but there we go. Oh my goodness. Yep. I'll probably have to knit one for me in colors that I like in the smaller size, so that when he wears his, we can wear them together and we can be a very odd couple, very strange group of people to see. So here's where I'm at, and it's going to be much longer. It decreases every 4 inches, so it's still got a ways to go, but there we go. So hopefully he's happy with it. Yeah, I do feel a little silly with this on, but it's a cool project, and it's a cool concept. You'll never forget your hat and you'll never forget your scarf. He is a person who likes to wear both when it gets cold outside. Yeah, so I cast this on probably last weekend. I worked on it a ton nonstop because I really typically am like a monogamous knitter. If I start a project, I want to get it done so I can move on to new shiny things. And also with Rhinebeck coming up, I want to have all the hand knits done so I have lots of things to choose from to actually wear. I'm definitely bringing my alho because I loved it, and you guys were so sweet when you saw that sweater last episode. A lot of people were saying that it was my color and that it was such a pretty sweater, and I agree. It is my favorite sweater I've knit, so I'm really happy with it. I do love this sweater. This one, well, you know, now that I've been wearing it, this is the only time I've actually worn it since I made it. I haven't even taken pictures of it yet. I'm actually really loving wearing this. I wasn't sure how practical it would be being a wool sweater in Alabama. It's hard to find the exact pocket of the year when this kind of sweater would work, like short sleeve and cropped but still wool. But this morning driving over here, with it being pitch black outside, it was just chilly enough that this was the perfect sweater. So I should be getting more wear out of it than I anticipated. All right, well, I don't have shop update news. Not really, because I haven't actually been over at my shop since I last recorded. So nothing new to show. I do have a Labor Day sale running on Etsy for a couple more days. I don't remember what day that ends. Labor Day is not till Monday, so I'm sure it goes to at least Labor Day. So that's 15% off of everything in my shop. I've already had a couple of sales, so I do have plenty of things left in my shop. A couple project bags, lots of yarn. So check that out. That's linked below if you want to check out my Etsy. What else? Oh, something really exciting about Etsy. So man, tongue-tied. So Etsy announced that they were going to do like a star seller sort of badge / program. They announced this probably beginning of August or late July. And there are certain metrics that you have to meet in order to qualify as a star seller. And yeah, I was really excited. September 1st, I got an email saying that I was part of the first group of star sellers. So I have a little badge now in my shop that says that my customer service is great and my shipping rate is great and I'm making enough sales and everything to be a star seller. So that's really cool, and I'm on track, if not already qualified for October. So yeah, I definitely have you guys to thank for your support and all the nice reviews that you leave. It really means so much to me. I made an Instagram post about this recently, but I am not really one to qualify or quantify my success based on the success of others in this industry. It's a really competitive industry, and I went into it knowing that. So if anything, I'm just proud of all the work that everybody does. I love to see all of the creativity and the exciting, shop updates, all of the knitwear that people make. I don't think that it's a competition. I think that it is a community. So, it can be a little bit difficult to measure your success if you think about it that way, because I'm not asking myself, like, why are people buying X yarn but not my yarn? That doesn't come up in my mind. What does help me feel qualified as somebody in the industry is the feedback I get, and it so far has been really, really kind and positive and loving, and so that's really all that matters to me, just to know that I am helping to, you know, bring somebody a little excitement in the knitting world. I think is really, really cool, and it makes it all worth it. So that's enough of my sappiness, but thank you for your support and your comments and your purchases and your reviews. I really appreciate it. And to all of you who subscribe, that is really helpful. I so appreciate you doing that, because it does help my business to grow and to gain some more attention. So yeah, I don't have anything else. I figured I would just mention a few of my favorite YouTube channels, because I've been seeing a lot of people do that recently, and maybe that'll give you something exciting to watch if you don't already, and I'm sure that you do with a few of these. But for knitting podcasts, Merryweather Knitting, Gabriella, she is like my favorite person to watch. She is so just lovely, and her episodes are beautiful. The thought processes that she has behind all of her knitting is so lovely. She really thinks about it in an artistry sort of fashion, and it's fun to listen to her talk about her process. And of course her videos are beautiful and her projects are beautiful, and I'm sure that you all have already seen her, but if you haven't, or if you needed a reminder, go watch her. She is doing beautiful things. She's actually knitting with my yarn right now, one of my favorite skeins, Soleil colorways. So it's exciting to watch her progress with that. So go check her out. She is absolutely adorable and such an amazing knitter and project designer. And she's working on a pattern for a shawl that is absolutely gorgeous. And I already told her I wanted to test knit. So Gabriella, this is a reminder to sign me up when you're ready. Yeah, so I also have mentioned before, but Caitlin of the Cozy Moth Knits, she is absolutely adorable too, and she is such a good knitter. I've always loved watching her videos. I've been watching her since she first started recording, and yeah, I've learned a lot. I love the things that she does and talks about too. And she actually also just knit with some yarn that I sent her some time ago in my wisteria colorway, and she made these gorgeous socks. So you can go check out her work, the Cozy Moth Knits. Big fan of her. And who else? Heather of the 4-Star Knits. Again, another person who I'm sure you're all familiar with, but she is amazing. She's so sweet, and her personality is so much fun. It's just like hanging out with a friend. I mean, it is with all these people that I watch, don't get me wrong, but Heather has this really just fun personality. She always seems like she's probably the life of the party, and but in like a knitter way, if that makes sense. So I love watching her videos, and seeing what she's also knitting. So I'll maybe mention some more people next time as far as knitting goes, because I mean, there's so many amazing knitters in the community. I could go on and on, but I'll save some for next time. I would also mention though, Roots and Refuge, the YouTube channel Roots and Refuge. There's been a lot of talk recently on knitting videos about the intersection between gardening and knitting, and how often people who have one hobby, or at least who have the knitting hobby, it's like one and the same. You tend to appreciate gardening if you don't do it yourself. And I will say Roots and Refuge, her name is Jess, her videos are really amazing to watch. She does now organic farming and like organic gardening, which is what my husband and I do. So I love watching her for that sake, but she also just seems like really fun and down to earth. And so if you're looking for just something to watch, and you want a little bit of like taste of the South, which I feel funny saying because I'm not from here, but my husband is very Southern. So watching her and her family, it's like I could see my husband out there with them. Check out Roots and Refuge. Oh goodness. Okay, well the sun is starting to come up and I've got lots of other things to do this weekend, so I should probably go ahead and sign off. Hopefully this episode was coherent enough to be entertaining in the slightest. So thank you for watching. Please subscribe. I am getting close to 300 subscribers and that's pretty cool. I will probably do some kind of giveaway soon as another thank you. So yeah, okay, thank you so much. I will talk to you guys next time. Happy knitting and happy crafting. Bye. Okay, I am editing this clip in after the fact. I just signed off and forgot to mention that I have these 5 skeins of yarn here. These are merino singles that I dyed. It is sort of like a fade kit. The colorways are all very, very similar, but you know, still different enough. The camera does kind of change them a little bit, but anyway, I have 5 colorways here, these merino singles, and I need help picking a pattern of what to knit with these. It's kind of hard to find a pattern that calls for 5 different colors of yarn. So, you know, I don't necessarily have to do it with 5, or I don't have to find a pattern necessarily that calls for 5 different colors, but something that would be suitable with fingering weight yarn, 5 shades preferably. If y'all could help me find a sweater pattern to knit with this. I was thinking about doing an Andrea Mowry fade pattern, one of her fade sweaters. I can't remember what it's called, but it's like, I think just a basic raglan. Very popular, everybody's done it. I don't really want to knit a shawl because I want this to be a sweater. I would do a shawl if I had to, but anyway, if you have some tips, please let me know. It's all just shades of mauve and like a dark gray, almost black, kind of purple. There's like 2 speckled skeins and the rest are tonal. So yeah, please let me know. I really want to knit this. These are my favorite colors and they've just been sitting here because I don't know what to make. All right, post recording video done. Bye.